Okay, we're recording. So you guys, I'm so excited. Welcome to Comedians Exposed. Today's guest is host of the Quinnspiracy podcast, Food Addict podcast, Best Friends with Joe Gorman podcast, and he's running a show Thursday night at Flamingos. Please welcome Anthony Quinn to Comedians Exposed. Welcome, Anthony.
Hi, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
You said exposed. I'm not showing my man boobs, okay? I'm just letting you know that.
I don't know. It's early on in the podcast. Let's see what we can get you to do.
I'm not that liberated. I'm sorry. I'm just not.
You need to liberate, right? That's what we're talking about today is vulnerability.
Oh,
so let's go right into, is that an area where you feel vulnerable? If I ask you right now to say, hey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my weight is something that always has made me feel vulnerable. And to this day, like even if I'm at a mic, I'm at a show or whatever, like somebody will pick me out of nowhere and tell fat jokes and do stuff like that. I don't mind. I can give it back to people. But you have these little subtle things and it does make you feel vulnerable. And sometimes the next day, you don't realize how vulnerable you are until the next day.
So we're gonna dive all into this, but first, before we do, I've been trying to be very cognizant of making sure, tell everybody where you can find you on social media.
Absolutely. My Instagram is the.AnthonyQuinn. My Facebook is Anthony Quinn, the good looking one, wink, wink. You can please check out my podcast. You just plugged. We like to keep it real. It's just an on the phone thing. It's an audio thing. And I've gotten a great response. Not that many listens, but a great response. Everybody enjoys it and we have fun. And like you said, it's a process and it's about creating good content right now.
Yeah. All right, Anthony. So vulnerability. Okay. So that's what we're doing. It's all a process. You know what I mean? That's where we're in. So thank you to anyone who listens. Let's always thank the people who do listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
We appreciate you so much. And Anthony, I appreciate you being a guest. And I want you to start off. What does it mean? When you're vulnerable, what's that for you? What is that?
I just want to say Deanna appreciates you a little more than me, just a little bit.
I love literally like anyone who listens to the podcast ever, I love so much. Like I know right now I'm hugging you through the cosmos. Oh my gosh. Because this is vulnerable. Don't you feel like having podcasts is vulnerable?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes you never know who's listening. And I've had people stop me at mics and stuff, comics, like, dude, I like your podcast. And I'm like, really?
I think a very positive scenario. What makes me worry is like, are you a journal keeper? Do you keep a diary?
No, I don't. No, it's all up here. Unfortunately, I never forget a thing. So.
Oh. That sounds tough. I feel like keeping this is like a podcast is like a diary now that you've put out for the universe forever. And
absolutely.
That's so uncomfortable. But anyway, let's get back to you. What does it mean for you to be vulnerable?
For me to be vulnerable is when I feel like I've extended myself too much or in a situation, or I feel like I'm putting myself out there for people to pick away at me, to belittle me. And what I'm finding out as I get older, that a lot of times I'm overthinking things a lot. It's really, there's no need to feel, to feel vulnerable. There's no need to feel vulnerable, but it's a process. It's one of those things. We have these behaviors and these feelings and we can treat them, but they never go away.
Do you think being vulnerable, do you feel it's a bad thing?
Well, I think it has to be kept under control, especially for me. I suffer from other things that make me vulnerable. Like I have some ailments. I have a neurological thing. No jokes. So, that makes you vulnerable too. This is what I'll say. A lot of times, if I don't know the difference between good and bad, like if something happens and I'm not sure if it's good or bad, sometimes that's good for me. Sometimes that means I'm in a good space because I'm not judging anything. And that helps me with my vulnerability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about comedy? Do you feel comedy helps you? One, I'm going to ask about coping, like, as it sounds like just from some of the just sharing, having a health issue. Does comedy help with that?
Well, comedy is hard, right? uh, not for you, for me. I'm talking about for me, okay? Whoa, let's slow back. It's one of those things, like it can be what you need it to be, and it's easy for me to say that.
Yeah.
But then when it's a packed house and they're like, you're on next, that's something where, you have to, and I find that I don't prepare enough. I have a thing where I do self-sabotage a lot in my life. That's what I've done in the past a lot.
Yeah.
And so I make myself vulnerable in a bad way.
Huh. What about, you said comedy, what it needs to be. So what does it need to be for you?
It needs to be positive, and it needs to be, something I can express myself through, and that I can feel good about. For the first, I've been back about 4 years now. And for the first year or two, I wasn't sure, I wasn't sure, but now I'm sure, baby.
Yeah.
I know I want to be on stage, and I know I'm never going to stop doing comedy. So that helped my vulnerability a lot.
Yeah.
Because at first, when I came in, a lot of the younger people, I was looking for them for approval. And there's such a generation. Oh, my internet connection is unstable, it's saying.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
You were like breaking up a little bit.
All right. Oh, that sucks. Why is that, I wonder? Okay, are we back?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay.
There you are.
Here I am.
There you go again. He's like a robot.
Oh no. Why is this happening to
Yeah, I don't
us?
know.
Can I just check something? Can you pause it for a second?
Yeah.
Just check
Let
that
me
out.
stop.
All right.
Okay, so I think we're good to go with internet. So we were talking about, I wanted to know, like, again, what do you need comedy to be then? Because again, people get into comedy, like, there's a reason. Again, with any type of, whether it's a profession, like, you can earn money doing anything. Why particularly comedy? Like, what draws you to comedy?
I'm a people person. I always have been. And I love making people laugh. I love talking to people. I love, just mixing it up with people. And a lot of times, if you don't have a microphone, people don't want to mix it up with you. No, but I'm saying is, like, it's a big part of who I am is, I'm social, I'm outgoing.
Yeah.
I like to express myself. And, like, when you do well, there's no better high than that. Is there? Is there a better high when you
When you
do well in a
it
big
does
room?
feel good. But then
Just a
when you
little, huh?
don't do well, yeah, that.
Oh, yeah.
But what
Yeah.
about, okay,
And
here's
this
the thing
happened to
though.
me.
Okay, this is a question. Here's the question. Because you don't know that high until you do comedy, okay?
Yeah.
You have no clue what that's like. So why, before the high even exists, why did you say, I need this microphone? And you're just saying, okay, because I want to be social and make friends and,
No. I always wanted to do comedy. 20 years ago, I took a comedy class with Scott Blakeman. First time I ever did comedy, Jerry Seinfeld did a drop-in. So I was like, this is meant to be. But it was a time in my life where I was very young. I had a lot of trauma, and I had nobody to really give me support. Comedy was different back then. There wasn't as many comedians, and it didn't seem as easy to slip into. I was talk about vulnerability back then. I just, but so when I came back to it, now I've had a family, I've done all these things in my life, and I always wanted to do it. I just wasn't sure if I could.
Mm-hmm.
And once I found out, like once I did it for about a year, I was like, about a year and a half, and I started getting some success, and I started having some people really believe in my comedy. that's when I realized, this is it. This is it.
So what's your comedy about?
My comedy is, it's about my life. My podcast, Food Addict's about my life. I share a lot of stuff about my life. I find that doing that helps me. It helps me deal with stuff. But the podcast more because comedy is weird because if I share one of my problems, like with my food addiction, I can have jokes about my food addiction and people will laugh, but it won't help me as much as when I do a podcast about it. I'm talking with somebody else, then I can listen to the podcast back. And the podcast is like 40 minutes, comedy sets like, 7 to 10 or whatever. So,
Yeah.
it's just sometimes I would think like you're joking about this food addiction. You're joking about drinking people syrup. Why do you keep doing it?
But
And
isn't that part of too, I think, because other comics have said this with like this idea of neutralizing things. Like you're able, because especially too, like so much of comedy for some comics, I don't know if it's for everybody, but for some people is born out of a really painful place or really uncomfortable experience. And it's like by talking about it, you're reclaiming it, and kind of like taking it back in some way. And
yeah,
I was curious because you talked about how early on, right before when we first got on the podcast, you kind of talked about, how you're uncomfortable and feel vulnerable with your weight. And then you said
oh
how
yes,
you feel more, on stage, it's not, you don't get, it's not as cathartic versus your podcast of talking about like those food issues. So it's like, do you think that element, the physical element of being on stage, because I feel like that's such a big part of comedy is like, how do you physically look? The audience is going to judge us, they're interpreting us, we have no idea what they're thinking, but we have internalized these socialized thoughts. So what is
yeah.
that like for you on stage?
A lot of times you got to know your crowd. I mean, that crowds vary, but uh, it's hard because sometimes I do feel like people are judging me a little bit, you know, um, and that's how the self-deprecating comedy can get to you. Sometimes it can sink in. If you're talking bad stuff about yourself all the time. Um, and it's always truth-based. But a lot of times when I'm on stage, when I have the microphone these days, I'm in charge. I don't care what people think of me. If they're not laughing and I think they're judging me, then I'm gonna call them on it. Hey, you got a problem with, do crowd work,
Mhm.
and then people brighten right up, like, hey, how you doing? And then they come up to me after and say it was great. So, yeah, I've had unbelievable trauma in my life. I suffer from PTSD in a lot of ways, and comedy absolutely helps it. It absolutely helps my self-opinion. It helps everything. Because you see other I don't want to, you want me to start crying? Is that what you want?
No.
You want Quinn tears?
Oh, Quinn tears.
You get this bond with other comics, and it's like you're like, soldiers. You're like comrades in arms, and but at the end of the day, when you're up there, you're still up there alone.
All by yourself. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's and it's weird how like, being up there by yourself, how the audience, you're dependent upon the audience. So how much of your comedy when you're going up there is just for your own self-healing, or how much of it is for you're really focused on what the experience of the audience is going to be like?
Well, I did this the other night. We actually took a trip to Ohio. I don't know if you heard about that. We did this like Jersey Boys. I'm not from Jersey, but Carl Bilbert is the Jersey Boy.
Oh, who
I
are the
am
Jersey Boys?
I impersonated a Jersey boy Friday night.
So who was
Um,
it?
what?
Who was it? You
It
and
was me, Carl, Andrew Rich, this guy, Steve Goldberg, and Mark Yobs.
oh.
Yeah. So, yeah, right. Yeah.
Yes.
But it was a great crowd. It was a packed house. Everybody was under 30. And I found myself, there was this one joke that I liked. There's always one or two jokes that I do for me because I like them. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And I have this new joke where I'm talking about eating. I've been dieting. I'm like, because I haven't had fast food or sugar for like 3.5 weeks. So, I mean, I'm trying not to be too crazy, but I use it on stage and I'm like, it's the spiders. We eat 7 or 8 spiders a year. I'm eating 500 spiders a night, and I go, and sometimes people laugh at it and they don't. And, I elaborate, but I said, I do that joke for me, and everyone laughs at that, so, I think if I try to do it too much for the audience, then I'll miss out on it.
Yeah.
I'll miss out on some of it. So, it just, it's learning, and that's why people who have been doing this for 20 or 30 years are so jaded.
Well, you know what, I'm curious, like, again, yeah, doing it for 20 and 30 years, but it's like thinking about, like, my curiosity is like, what are you trying to get out of it? So it's like,
That's a great question.
Yeah, like doing it for 30 years, like, what's your ultimate perspective? So for you, what are you trying to get out of it?
Well, I'm trying to get, approval from the audience, of course. But yeah, I'm trying to help, live a balanced life, do things that I like. I have my kids. I see so much stuff in the comedy world that I can't understand. I see people, all they do is talk about how many years they've been doing it, all their contacts, and then they go up on stage and there's just nothing. I'm not trying to say that I'm better than anybody, but I'm saying is, if you're going to talk it, you got to walk it. You got to back it up. That's how I feel. So I'm trying to let it be a balanced part of my life, create contacts and friends that I have things in common with, a support network. And I'll tell you, the Jersey comedy scene is a pretty decent support. It's turned into a pretty decent support network. It has.
After the, what was it, the turf wars,
I just gulp.
Yeah, those that are left have made peace. Oh my gosh. But because again, you were on podcast one of them, and I got to be on both of Anthony's podcasts. They were
Yes.
fun, super fun. Quinnspiracy, talking about all different conspiracy theories.
And you were Judge Judy. We were talking about Judge Judy.
Yeah, Judge Judy. I feel like, again, cut right through the bullshit, It's like nobody.
He makes me vulnerable, Judge Judy, okay?
But I don't mind being vulnerable. I think you and I, it's funny because you've got like, we're like the yin and the yang right now on the screen, with your black t-shirt on, my white t-shirt on, because it's like, I like to be vulnerable. I lean into it. I feel like, all right, I'm gonna, because
I do the same thing. I don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I think
No, go ahead. What were you saying? I apologize.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Uh-oh.
Hello?
No, I'm saying, like you were saying, like, you like to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Or you're okay with it. I have no choice. My name's Anthony. I'm just vulnerable. I just am. So I think there's good parts of it. And I would say it's more annoying. It can be more annoying to me sometimes because I have this extroverted thing, and you put yourself out there, and you get hurt.
Yeah. But what if you didn't put yourself out there? Then what would happen too?
Then you get nothing. You have to take.
Then you're also hurt. So that's just the bottom line is, audience, you're gonna get hurt. Everything hurts. Okay. Yeah.
I'm Deanna Kobe, and I'm telling you, it hurts.
It hurts.
Maybe that should be the name of this podcast. It hurts.
Well, especially too, like, vulnerability. That's exactly what it, defined is leaving yourself open to attack, either emotional attacks, physical attack, some sort of emotional harm. And again, I do try to kind of like talk with comedians about like, just again, because I feel like physicalness is something that's an added element to doing comedy, because it's not only just what we're saying. Again, I do feel like what our persona is also depends upon how we're perceived based on our bodies. So I like your second podcast, Food Addict, I found it to be personally very a willingness to be vulnerable, because you're talking about, again, addiction.
Yeah. I was just going to say something, but it's what I have to work on myself is putting tools in place So I don't self-sabotage. So I don't go into self-sabotage mode. So the vulnerability doesn't become part of my problem, where I can keep it at a healthy level. I think that's what, when I get into it, it's living a healthy life is what I want to do.
But I think the vulnerability is okay. It's what the emotions that come with
Yeah.
being vulnerable. Like, okay, like for me, like, shame, is there guilt? Is there regret? You know what I mean? It's like those emotions. It's like, because the vulnerability is like you're opening yourself up. So like for me, it's like you're talking about this openly, like you're like saying, and I think it's wonderful so open about it, especially because like one thing as a comedian I am fascinated by is how there's been a really huge movement towards being inclusive with comedy and not punching down, but I don't feel that has applied to fat people. I feel like fat people get left out, and it's still like, so fat people are still, it's like a classic trope. And it's kind of like, wait a second, we're like, especially when we look at the addictive quality and nature of food.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's whatever you have, whatever your defect is, people are going to go after it. Um, the thing about, being overweight is a lot of times it just sucks because we're given so much disinformation about nutrition. And sometimes you get in such a hole with your body and it's all part of it. It's all your frame of mind. It's when the sugar, like getting off sugar is huge for me.
Yeah.
Because I find that when I'm crashing on sugar, I'm thinking crazy shit.
Yeah.
Because I'm crashing on the sugar. I'm crashing on life already. But
Well,
the
it rewires your neurological processes. So it's like you're now rewired to crave it and just constantly want it. And it's like, and this is the thing, and it's like, this is cultural. So like speaking, before we got on the podcast, Anthony and I were talking a little bit about American culture, but looking at, if we had to define American food with our, and looking at our culture and food, our food overwhelmingly is that of creating these patterns in people, like of addiction with what they eat. And it's, how do you expect people to come out of it on their own? So I give you so much credit for openly talking about it and, just engaging in the concept, because it's like, it's something really relevant and important.
You wouldn't believe, this actually shocked me a little bit, how much everybody can identify with food addiction and the behaviors that go along with it. Like, even if you're not a food addict, you have behaviors that are unhealthy. When you shouldn't eat something and it's bad for you, especially if you start getting to be over 40 and 50, then I mean, like, I see people doing coke that are over 50, and it's like, dude. Somebody asked me if I wanted coke one night. I'm like, dude, I'm like 80, 100 pounds overweight. I just had a fucking baby, man.
No, I did not. Cocaine. I never understood cocaine. I don't
I understood it.
Oh my God. No, it's so true. I had a glass of wine recently. Like, I haven't really drank, and this shit hit me. Like, it's like when you get to an age, like, yeah, your body tells you clearly, like, you need these things. And it's like, and again, it's like one of these things you got to cultivate and take care of yourself. But
yeah. A lot of people, they just don't listen to their bodies. And that's what I try to do. It's almost worse, Deanna, because I've lost weight so many times. I've been successful so many times. So when I'm going to fucking fast food every night, because Wendy's has 2 for $5, I actually know that I cannot do this. I actually know that I shouldn't be doing this, and that I'm going to have to be going up that uphill battle again, and it's just making it worse. So it's one of those things I have to do myself. Nobody can say anything to me. Nobody can belittle me enough, because I'll eat over anything. I'll eat if it's raining, if it's snowing, if the sun's shining, if my set is good, if it's bad, if it's Christmas, if it's your birthday. It's Deanna's birthday. I got to eat a pizza.
But that's the thing, again, going back to culture, like our food and culture, you know what I mean? Yeah, like you eat for culture, like that's something that's part of it. It's like there's so many complexities and layers upon it. And and again, what about the audience? Like, how, because you talk about this in your set, how does the audience respond
To
to
Oh,
like
to the
you
food addict.
talking about,
People
yeah,
always laugh at the food addict stuff, because I incorporated in with the fat stuff. They always laugh at the drink your syrup. That always gets a laugh. Um, and what I do is a lot of times I'll say, anybody here have problems with food? And sometimes some people go right away, they'll shake their head and I'll go, whoa, you shook your head kind of quick there, pal.
yeah,
What are you trying? And then, we have a laugh about it. But if somebody's saying something, if somebody says, hey, you know, you have a club foot, and you're like, no, I don't. You may have a club foot.
yeah,
Not the best analogy, but I'm saying is, it's you can tell, and you can lie to yourself all you want. We can lie to ourselves all day long. You can go get the fast food breakfast. You can get the Dunkin' Donuts. I can't even be around Dunkin' Donuts. I try to look the other. I can't even look at one when I drive
mhm,
by. It's just so terrible for you, man. I
yeah.
mean, it's like there's nothing nutrient. You
But
might
it's
as well
so
spoon Crisco.
accessible and it's so cheap,
Every office you go
yeah,
to, they have Dunkin' Donut. When I used to do independent films, I used to do independent film production. Dunkin' Donuts, every craft services, and
yeah,
so yeah, so that makes me vulnerable too.
yeah.
Makes me if I see food around, I'll think, oh, everybody thinks I want to eat this food. Like sometimes you feel guilty. Like, is everybody watching me eat this donut? I don't get crazy about it, but sometimes it's an afterthought. A lot of this stuff is an afterthought because I think about myself a lot. I'm a genuinely cheery kind of guy.
Yeah.
All right. Let me have that one, okay? um, so I don't know. If and I tell my kids this, man, and that's what being a dad has helped me a lot in life, because when I tell my kids something, then I have to pay attention to it and I have to live it. And one time my son said this to me. He was probably 11 or 12 at the time. And he goes, I'm trying to, Dad, but you're acting the exact opposite the way you tell me to act. And I was like, whoa,
Oh,
and that's it. That's it. I mean, at the end of the day, no one really cares. I mean, some people want to care, but if you don't get the proper treatment or get yourself together the right way,
yeah.
people get tired of listening, man. They do.
But you think people would get, but what I'm trying to, do you think people would get tired of listening to you talk about this? Is that what you're saying?
Oh no, I'm saying like if you're not positive, if you don't have a constructive way, like the podcast helped me, the comedy helps me.
Yeah.
My kids help me to understand what's negative and what's positive, because when you start complaining all the time, I'm great at it. Deanna, I could be an Olympic complaint. I would bring the gold home for the team. Yes.
Yeah.
And it just gets you nothing. It just,
It
and
wears, so it's a lot of wasted energy, You
absolutely,
think about how
absolutely.
limited we have such, especially too, like with doing comedy, how much time comedy consumes, like trying to do it, like,
Yeah.
you don't want to spend time dwelling on like negative things, especially things that are beyond, to some extent, like just beyond us, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's what I'm learning, to let things go. Because with the negativity and the eating, I mean, talk about vulnerability. I'm making myself vulnerable to disease, like
Yeah.
physical disease,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And that's like, especially, I feel like that's a great way to like think about things like with health, is like,
Yeah.
and like looking at our relationship with food is like really thinking about like, no, this is like nourishment and this is, you know, keeping us alive. And especially like you think about how we're living things and plants are living things. And, like there's got to be like, again, that energy you're getting from consuming, live, you know what I mean? Like things from the earth.
Yeah. It tastes so good. The proper food tastes so good. And, when you're eating it, you feel so great,
Yeah.
but it's work.
And it's expensive too. So, but I feel like now we're going to getting somewhere completely off. That's
Okay. I'm
a whole
sorry.
other.
I'm
No, no,
sorry.
don't be sorry. No, 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 no.
I,
Don't be
I, I,
sorry.
I was sorry before we logged on.
Uh, I feel like we could even talk, even like that's like a whole other like, talking about again like food, looking at food specifically. But I love how again you bring that in, because to me, like again, it's very vulnerable. I've shared myself like as a woman, and I only can identify again, from the female perspective, but it's been very uncomfortable doing comedy for me because of, again, just being comfortable in my body and just having to deal with all of that. So it's, I always like engaging with fellow comics who can like kind of be like connect with that in a relevant way.
Oh
Because,
yeah,
I feel like it affects sometimes your performance, definitely like that level of
absolutely.
uncomfortableness of like, ugh, ugh, it really holds you back.
Yeah, I would say, you know, uh, from my experience, talking to women that have been on my podcast, women have it. I don't want to generalize, but what they have it way worse with food issues generally, and way worse with this sort of thing, with people judging them, being sexist towards them, and stuff like that, which I could imagine would make you feel vulnerable in a bad way.
It's yeah, I think it well again, I appreciate it because I think about my own experiences doing comedy and like feeling certain instances have happened along my comedic journey. And I was like, all right, I felt very vulnerable because surrounding those things, but I'm like, that's okay. Cause it's like, aside from comedy, like, again, this is why I like this idea of vulnerability, because I think if you tap into things that create joy, if you are willing to make
That's
yourself
it.
uncomfortable, there's movement and room for yourself to evolve. And that's, that to me is like, oh, that's why I love this stuff, So I love the fact that, again, you're willing to talk to me about this, and because it's really uncomfortable.
I always used to say life is about moments of peace and joy and togetherness. And really, I mean, that's what it's all about. And that's right there.
Yeah.
Comedy is in all of that,
Yes. Yeah. Because
you know?
it's like you can connect with people, you're in the moment. And, especially like I just love like, those really like organic moments where like a joke is created within that setting. Like
Yeah.
just, and it only works in that one moment in space and time,
Yeah.
but there's something really nice. What about for you? What about some of the things you joke about? Do you dive into topics that make people uncomfortable?
Well, honestly, I feel like with what we're going through and with I really don't, I'm not a politics guy. I don't get into the politics because I think it's a slippery slope and so many people are misinformed that I would make my whole thing arguing with people that really don't even know what they're talking about. And I don't know what I'm talking about. That's why I don't even get into politics, because it's all just, it's kind of like a mirror. You can look at it either way, and it's a waste of time. Um, what I have done is I've stopped with the buzzwords. I hardly swear anymore. And I feel so great about that.
Mhm.
I feel like there's so many more places to go. And it's weird to hear me say this because I'm not going to say I was ever that blue, but, and I'm not going to say I don't say an F word every once in a while. I do. I mean, my name's Anthony. I have to. Okay. Forget about it. but, but now without the buzzwords, there's just so many more places to go. And maybe now without the buzzwords, maybe I can approach topics that I never did.
Yeah.
you know you find a way. I think it's finding a way to talk about stuff, and I find a way. Like I talked about my girl, I talk about my baby. He's wearing 4T clothes now. And he's 19 months. Okay. Right. 4-year-olds don't wear diapers, just so you know. I'm keeping you up to speed.
Oh, he's a big boy.
So,
Aw.
yeah, so I talk about that, and
Yeah.
just like my life, what's going on. And that's one of the things I think I'm struggling with, as not struggling with, but as I feel good about that, I see
Yeah.
my material changing. It's becoming more about real stuff, not just about jokes I'm trying to tell.
Does it make your family uncomfortable that you talk about that stuff?
Oh, they don't really even listen. They don't, I mean, they did, and now everybody's so busy. You know how it is
Yeah.
when you say, watch my comedy. Unless somebody asks you for your comedy, they're not going to watch it. I mean, after a while, they watched it for a while, but
Well, do you think comedy requires that you have to be your authentic self?
I think being your authentic self in everything you do is the best. I think, but if you're in the moment, you being an artist, you transform into things in that moment, and finding authenticity is all part of it. In any role you play on stage, or I think in life, period.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, I'm all real, baby. I'm not.
So you would be saying, because I feel like I don't know. Sometimes I feel like there's a spectrum of people who do comedy, like who are the joke writers. Like we're going up there. I have my jokes. I have, or maybe my persona even. Um, and then I feel like the other end of the spectrum of where people are like, this is me, this is who I really am, and I'm going to show you who I really am on stage. I'm just going to like turn it up a little bit.
Yeah, this is funny because this is what I didn't get the first time I was in comedy. I didn't find my stage persona,
Mhm.
I didn't find it. And now I did, now I did. And it's close to me. It's close to me, but I think that's the growth in comedy is you find out how to change it a little bit for the audience.
Yeah.
You find out how to make it a little better, clean it up a little bit, make it more fun. I used to think I had to express the grit, Anthony Quinn, and now that's more for like open mics if people aren't listening and stuff. But if
Yeah.
I have a show, I'm happy, man. I want to be like, hey, everybody, I'm Anthony Quinn. That's what I do now. It's happy energy.
What are your 3 words? Give me your 3 words to describe Anthony Quinn comedy.
Whoa. Oh my God. Energetic, loud, and round. There you go. There you go. I just wrapped it up for you. Nice little
Okay.
package.
Okay. Uh, would you rather be criticized for a joke or misunderstood for a joke?
Uh, I mean, everybody I think would say misunderstood. You know, um, it depends on who the criticism comes from. I take criticism from other comics worse than I do, people in the crowd. Um, but
Why
I
are
don't
you
know. I
getting
mean, what?
criticism from other comics?
Why'd you say?
Why are you getting criticism from other comics?
Well, you know what I'm saying. Like people give you like backhanded stuff. Why? Oh yeah. Why am I getting criticism?
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. That's where you get gritty with him, Anthony Quinn, right?
You're tough. I'll tell you. Let me tell you. I'm going to tell a Deanna Kobe story right now. Do I have a second?
Okay, yeah, yeah,
Do I
yeah.
have a second?
You have a
Well,
second,
I
yeah.
was about a year and a half in probably. And I saw Deanna, I think it was I think it might've been at the Boiler Room. I'm not sure when it was. It was one of those places where it was tough, all comics, all these young comics. And I was doing pretty well. And you were laughing at everything. You were encouraging me and you were like telling people, shut up. Like you weren't saying shut up. You were saying it in a nice way, but being authoritative. And you were so hardcore. I mean, hardcore is really the only way to explain it. And I was like, I was an instant Deanna Kobe fan, man. And you were funny. It helps if they're funny, folks. It
Oh,
helps if they're funny.
that's very good. I don't recall this at
I
all.
know you don't.
Yeah, I thought I was kind of like incognito, just sliding in and sliding
No,
out.
it wasn't that noticeable to
Oh,
anybody
okay.
else. You know what I'm saying? But it was noticeable to me because
Yes.
I saw people's body language different toward, you know what I'm saying? They were like, whoa, that you had respect that I didn't have.
Comics get so butthurt though, don't you? Don't you think that
Oh my
you're a
God.
very sensitive little group? I wanted to say to you, Anthony, Bob Marley
Wow.
said, yeah,
Big fan.
Yeah,
Huge
big fan.
fan.
I know, that's why I'm sharing this quote with you. That vulnerability is a way for your heart to allow your heart to feel pleasure.
I agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can't stay shut in. You can't stay shut in.
So what do you
But
think what about the audience then? How would you tell an audience, because comedy again, it's not just you're the comic on stage, but the audience is an integral part of it. So how do you, especially in this woke culture that we're living in right now, what would you say to an audience to be willing to allow the comedian to be more vulnerable on stage? What would you give them advice right now? They're listening. Tell them, hey, audience, this is how you should be.
well, I would say always listen to the comedian's whole act. Don't jump to any conclusions. Sometimes like people want to like criticize somebody for saying a word or saying something the wrong way, but you haven't heard the rest.
Yeah.
If somebody's inappropriate or somebody's trying, it comes out. It's not just one little thing. to come out in something else that they do. I think people are too quick to jump.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't even mess around. I mean, Deanna, there's people that look like me that are doing crazy shit right now. Okay. So I'm like, hi, friendly, good. No, I'm happy. Have a baby.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, Anthony, I wanted to say again, it's always a pleasure talking with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Anthony, again, just do me a favor, tell everybody again about your podcast and where they can find you on social media.
Okay, my original
You know.
podcast is Quinnspiracy. That's on everything, every platform. My newer podcast is Food Addict. And that's not just it's about my life, but my life is pretty much centered around my food addiction. And I do have a podcast I did with Joe Gorman. We do sometimes. It's called Best Friends for Now. People seem to really like it. And Anthony Quinn. And again, the good looking guy on Facebook. Yeah. Yeah, Anthony Quinn.
And your show, you right at Flamingos?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're helping them set the flamingos up. We're helping them run it. So I'll be at the Flamingo, and people should go out. It's a strip club. Okay, relax, calm down. But it's a tent in back. All right. You don't have to do anything crazy. You could make it rain for me, but I'm not taking it off I'm not taking off anything. But yeah, it's gonna be fun every Thursday night starting this week.
Yeah.
Opening week.
Wonderful. Well, Anthony, it's always great to talk to you. Yes. I want to thank you so much. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Be well, my friend. Bye. Bye.